Have you ever felt like you are living a story that was laid out for you? Like you are just playing out the cards you were dealt with in life, and that any attempt to change course just seems too far out of reach? On today's episode of the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, we are continuing our series on manhood and masculinity with the 2023 Oscar-winning film, The Holdovers. This brilliant screenplay conveys an intimate tale about life as perceptions. How many times have you found yourself judging someone by the words that come out of their mouth? What if there was something behind those words? An out-of-focus narrative that clouds our understanding of the person. But what happens when we focus in and see the person with all their flaws, but also what they're capable of? One of the things I love about being a teacher is getting to know what students are capable of past your initial perceptions of them. And The Holdovers has become one of my new favorite films about the art of teaching, especially with how it portrays the teacher-student dynamic. But often teaching can feel futile, like you're not actually making a difference. It's hard to make sense of the world you're preparing your students to enter into. And so I appreciate how The Holdovers wrestles with the way we can make a difference through what we can control, even if it only affects the life of one person. And with that in mind, let's talk about manhood through The Holdovers. Welcome to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, where we analyze stories in films that help us make sense of life. We are four friends with backgrounds in storytelling, filmmaking, teaching, and narrative therapy. Join us on our quest towards telling and living our stories more meaningfully. I'm Derek Hatch.
My name is Nick Natal.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph Wilson.
I'm Jason Lin.
All right, so a lot of people have probably never heard of this movie, even though it's very, very recent. But I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of weeks that, hey, we're doing The Holdovers. And they're like, what's that? I've never heard of that.
Didn't hear of it until we were about to do it, too.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels old.
It's made.
That's the point. It's made to
Mm-hmm.
feel old. Yes, it's got a 70s throwback vibe.
Yeah, they did.
So for somebody who is listening to this episode, maybe you clicked on it because of the title and you were curious about it. Anyone want to just kind of share, before we even get into the conversation as a whole, why should you take the time and see this film? Why bother with The Holdovers?
This movie really gets to the heart of brokenness, kind of past what a person might throw out at you as a self-defense. And just you're exploring brokenness from two different ages.
Yeah.
You know, adolescence and also adult, a life that has a lot left to live and a life that has lived a lot and isn't sure what's left.
Yeah.
And both are grappling with hope. And I think if you're in that spot or know someone in that spot, which it's hard to believe you wouldn't be in either of those,
Right.
I think it's worth the watch. And it's just a good, well-done movie.
Yeah. Which is a little harder to come by, I feel like, these days, because this is the kind of film that doesn't feel like it came out a year ago. It feels from another time. And I think it really contributes to, you know, the last week's episode was on Fight Club, and it was about diagnosing this problem of masculinity, what to do with the unhealthy forms of it. And I think this, in what you just shared there, I think there's an echo and hints of a solution that this movie's going to dive into.
Definitely.
Yeah, this moment even has a little scene where they don't talk about Fight Club.
Entre nous.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all entre nous.
It's simply just a compassionate story.
Yes.
Mhm.
I think it's a very human story, and
Yeah.
it crosses age, it crosses gender, it crosses race, it
Mhm.
crosses economic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So it's unique in that it's such a small setting, but
Mhm.
it reaches very, very far.
That's good.
Really is just a movie just about people really connecting deeply
Yeah.
and being open to that, you know, because being open with people is really hard. You don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what they're going to take with that information,
Right.
but still genuinely being yourself
Yeah.
in front of them.
That's good.
I love that. Yeah, I really love this movie.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm going to read the letterbox real quick, and then we'll start.
Letterbox. Is that good, Jason?
Yeah, the last letter was subtly enough said that you actually did things correctly this time.
Thank you.
I didn't have to correct you on the name.
I want to Fight Club you right now. I think you would be my pick, Jason, for my first fight at Fight Club.
I wasn't going to keep that in the podcast until you said it.
Let's go. We got a parking lot.
All right, discomfort and joy. Perfect
I love
segue.
you right now. Is a
Perfect segue.
a great
Discomfort
word, a great
and
phrase.
joy. A curmudgeonly instructor at a New England prep school is forced to remain on campus during Christmas break to babysit the handful of students with nowhere to go. Eventually, he forms an unlikely bond with one of them, a damaged, brainy troublemaker, and with the school's head cook who has just lost a son in Vietnam. So the very first thing you notice before any moment of the movie starts is these very retro opening title cards and music and everything. And the director was going for this. He was going for this very 1970s look and feel. The story takes place in 1970 on the turn before 1971. Right from the get-go, you see that it's seeping you into this context of the 70s. We're going to talk about Vietnam. We're going to talk about the rise of secularism, broken families, early mental health awareness in popular culture. So you start to see that this movie is really in a transition of sorts. It's at a time period where a lot of things are changing. And what are the perceptions of life as it's changing? How are we understanding? Are we judging or are we seeking to go deeper? And so the opening, now I know, Nick, we were texting earlier, you wanted to share some thoughts. So when we actually get to the movie itself, when we get to the opening scene, kind of walk us through that a bit.
Well, the opening tells you exactly what the whole movie's about, at least I think.
Yeah.
Because before any image is shown, you hear these words of a choir conductor talking to the choir. And the words are, remember, the text is first. And then he says, in the beginning was the word. And he says, so the text is what you are concentrating on. Make it part of the music. And then you fade in and you have the choir singing. And then the very image after the choir singing is one of the most beautiful images of the whole movie is that water flowing and it's snowing. It is just so pretty. But this is a story about people, I think, trying to make music with their lives.
Yeah, that's good.
And they have the text. They have, I guess, their lives and their story. And they have just the basic principles. And Paul has all the knowledge in the world, but he has no music.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite parts, I just rewatched it, was when he's talking to the two guys at the bar at the bowling alley. It's the Santa with the red nose and the bartender. And I don't think that he was trying to insert his intelligence. I think he was trying to connect. And he has zero ability to connect with these two guys.
Staring at him.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of connected in that moment. I was me trying to tell some drop some Transformer Lord.
Exactly.
Back in 90s.
Exactly. So they're I guess they're all singing individual songs, but some of them are stuck in the song. So Mary is stuck in this song of grief.
Well, literally with the turntable, right? When she's at the party.
Yeah, that's the only song that she can play. Tully is just stuck. Tully or Tully, what is it?
Tully. Angus Tully.
Angus Tully. Thank you, Fun.
He's stuck in anger. He's stuck in anger. He's so angry.
Well, isn't it like the scene that he's playing? Because, man, you could get into the lyrics of all the songs when they're introduced, right? Because I need to go back to it, but even the music that's playing while he's introduced versus the music that we hear with Mary. And you said with Paul, there's no music.
Yeah, none.
There's none
it's
around
just
him.
knowledge, it's science, it's mystery novels.
Yeah.
It's just
his own voice.
There's no newlywed game. It's nothing. Absolutely nothing. He actually goes to sleep. I don't know if you caught this, but he goes to sleep and he just says Picasso, Monet. He says one other artist, just Picasso, Monet, and he lays down in his bed and he just falls right asleep. That's all he's That's all he's thinking about.
Yeah.
And with Mary, someone even comes up to her and goes, "Geez, lady, can't you just play something a little more hip?" And she just yells at him and shuts him down, and he throws up his hands, and she will not turn that.
This is a
she won't
movie.
Play anything else.
People integrating life together and making music, and I think that was such a great first opening. Just tells you right away.
Well, it's almost an invitation to the audience as well, like for us to concentrate on the word that is spoken between these characters. Because the words, all the words matter. Like the song lyrics matter.
Yeah.
The dialogue, even the things that maybe not seem as significant.
And now that you just said that, what's his name? Paul. Paul is trying to instill the word in Tully. because
Yes.
Tully doesn't have the word
Yeah.
to even make a song. He can sing, like I think he can sing. He can just sing the wrong song right now.
Yeah.
And Paul's trying to give him that word, so it's all these different.
It's like a different key, and he's trying
Yeah.
to correct the lyrics of the actual song. I
Yeah.
like that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
But Paul needs to learn how to sing and make music.
yeah,
That's
that's
idea.
and Tully helps him,
Yeah.
Yes.
and Mary, they both
Yeah.
help him. So
Let's talk about these three characters and how they're introduced right here in this opening sequence here. So Paul, that scene where he's in, I guess he's like the dean or something like that of the school.
Who,
right?
Paul?
No. The guy in the office that he's meeting with.
I
He's
thought
the
that was
headmaster.
The headmaster. Okay, thank you. So he's meeting
Thank
with the
you, phone
headmaster. He's upgrading the titles. So not
So created the title. That's funny. Evolving like a Pokemon. We got you, bro.
he's evolved.
It's literally just fine detail.
So he has that line, Paul says, where he's like, we're not sacrificing integrity on the altar of entitlement. The writing and dialogue is so dang good.
That was the bar.
Yeah.
That was a bar. He drops a lot of bars.
I agree with Paul. I'm like,
He's got lyrics, no music, but all lyrics.
Yep.
Because that entitlement is really like what gets at him. And immediately we can hear him say that, and we're on his side.
Yeah.
Like, it's really a great introduction of him, because there's a lot of things we're going to see in this movie with him. We're just like, I don't know about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a great opening scene here, because we don't quite know what to make of him at first, but we get the impression that he seems like he cares about teaching.
Yeah.
He's lost something. There's a harshness to him. He hands out the tests while insulting them. Oh, okay. When he hands out those tests, Nick, he's whistling Flight of the Valkyrie,
Yep.
which is this song of impending doom.
Yeah.
That's the only music he knows.
Mhm.
Oh,
Just-
dang, that's
just
And that's
criticism
that's the only music he can bring to people, and people hate him.
yeah.
It's
Yes.
the only song he can play.
You know people
Yeah.
don't like
Impending
you,
doom.
right?
Yeah.
Pretty much
Yeah.
everyone hates you.
Yeah, the
Even
guy-
the teachers.
Yeah, that guy sucks. I was mad at Tully.
Yeah.
You know you smell, right?
Yeah.
It was funny. That's
Nope.
realism with kids, though.
That is.
Kids will
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100% honest with you.
Yeah.
But with that, though, there is like when kids are 100% honest, or just when people are 100% honest, you can see that stuff that you may have seen, but you're trying to ignore. But when other people see it too, it's like, okay, this is something that
Yeah.
perhaps I actually need to change.
Yeah. Well, I think the classroom is almost like Paul's Fight Club in a way. Like, this is him trying to get out some aggression that he has,
Yeah.
not letting the kids retake the test again.
He's Tyler Durden.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like the Tyler Durden in the room.
He's more intelligent than these kids. He's above here, and
Well,
he calls them dirty little Philistines.
A
yeah.
whole lot of other words.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a line that he states where he says, "Not for ourselves alone are we born," and that's what I think he has to learn in this movie. That's his arc, and it's this whole idea that he has the words, he has the lyrics of life, but he's not actually
Living it out.
living it out. He's a good teacher. He knows his stuff, but he's not practicing what he teaches. Then we get to Angus, and he seems like the very entitled kid that Paul is criticizing. And he almost seems like a bully, to be honest, as well.
Oh,
Sharp.
very.
words.
He says some awful things.
To
And when I
Mary,
watched it
yeah.
again,
Yeah.
when I watched it again, because there's the other guy, Teddy Kuntz, it's a
Uh-huh.
jerk too. But what he said, calls him a sociopath, and he's like, if I were your parents, I would never want you home ever again. The only
Yeah.
tool in your room is you. I was like,
Yeah.
no, yeah, you can fight him.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, no,
Fight Club.
you started
Well, yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No one's
yeah,
fighting.
Yeah, no one's fighting. No.
I was like,
First
so
rule of
who's-
Fight Club, you don't mention the Fight Club.
Who started this? The not fighting.
Those two kids are so funny. The
Yeah.
Mormon is funny.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he broke quick when he was describing like scraping the gum off to get dust. You just see him twitching.
Yep.
Who did it?
Yeah. But Joe, I think that's a good point, though, is that Angus and Paul are both in Fight Club in their own ways. They're both operating in Tyler Durden. They're operating out of what they think a man is.
Yeah.
And they're both honestly kind of bullies.
Mm-hmm.
Who? Tully and Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I think those
Oh,
scenes are
definitely.
contrasted together on purpose
Mhm.
because I think we do see they are a lot similar than they would give themselves credit for.
And I think it's interesting that Paul got to leave and Tully had to stay. Because I was thinking that this was just going to be like one of those group movies and they all learned to actually. Oh,
No, the
Paul got to leave.
no,
Kuntz, Teddy.
Which one is the bully guy that had the long hair and was
They got
talking
the
about
F?
Mary? Yeah, and I was talking about Mary and
Coons.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always said, well, at least now they can't fire her.
yeah.
That was Matt. That
Yeah.
was nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Teddy.
Yeah, okay. So the fact that he got to leave,
Yeah.
even though like they're both kind of like in the same environment type
Right.
situation. That's
Yeah, that threw me through a loop. I
Mhm.
thought they were coming back from that ski trip.
yeah.
And I'm glad that they didn't do that trope. Like I'm glad they didn't go that way, and we got time with these three. And I'll say later why I think that's a good thing that he did. Like just in that story, I think it's good he went off with the kids he went off with.
Because I love that it's focused on the one. Even as a teacher, you can
Yes.
focus on a classroom, but there is that one
Oh my
that
goodness.
is highlighted to you that each year you have to pour yourself into just
Yes.
a little bit more. That's why I really like this story, because it is such an intimate
It is.
story.
It
and
is.
and teaching.
But there's one more ingredient to that intimacy, and that's Mary.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
Mary is not like the other two.
Mhm.
She is sweet, but also out of touch. She's very disconnected. And you can tell that there's obviously something that happened. And you learn early on that she lost, Mary Lamb, lost Curtis Lamb. And we're in her first Christmas, so it's interesting with the names and stuff,
I
right?
saw that. I'm like, oh, and the guy's name is Paul, and he's super graceless and keeps talking about the
Yep.
Romans.
Yeah.
I would have never. I didn't even know what you're talking about when you sent that text.
Really?
I would have never thought that. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
And literally, like, his eyes are messed up,
Yeah.
and he ends
Can't
up
see.
encountering and grappling with like he enters into Mary's.
It's a little
Lost.
too on the nose as you keep going. But
He,
still.
it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
Christmas movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, is this a Christmas movie? But he enters into Mary's loss, and it's almost like he can see again,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and like he has this encounter, and he's a different person.
So who's an Angus in the Bible?
Angus. It's almost like
I know there's no answer to that.
it's like take your pick. Like
Yeah.
Paul's going from persecuting these just children
yeah.
and just being so hard, and this is the
Philistines.
To giving
Yeah.
himself, to
This
giving
is-
himself for
this
them,
is the
yeah.
law. You guys are dirty little
This is the
troublemakers.
law.
This is-
he's
Right.
focused
Casey,
on the
you spit.
law
Yeah.
and how stuff's supposed to be. And this is Barton men don't do this.
Mhm.
We don't lie. Like
Jews
this
don't
is
do
how.
do this.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is how things are supposed
He's
to
moving-
be, and he can't get off of this. He's stuck on it, and he's stuck in the foundation that he grew up in.
He's moving
grew
from the
up in
letter to
Barton.
the spirit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
That's awesome.
That was good.
That's so
You
good.
spitting.
Jason.
Well, I mean, the writers did
I
this,
mean,
guys.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't catch.
I didn't
Yeah.
catch that.
Even after you texted, I'm like, what is he talking about? Mary and Lamb. Is this another one of his short stories that he's coming up with? I did not know.
Short stories?
Yeah.
Oh, like the movie?
Yeah.
Short stories.
That's awesome.
It's not that short a story. Action facts.
Yeah.
If you'll go to Axe, no. But
Yeah.
Derek was on it.
Yeah. I was like, I'm tracking. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, but I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
No, it's
cool.
awesome.
is.
I mean,
Very
this
cool.
this movie is very, very
that is cool.
rich.
And Paula was super knowledgeable too.
Mhm.
Now, one thing in this movie is that I kind of started to pick up where it was going at first. And I'm like, okay, we're doing Dead Poet Society, but on a little bit more of a smaller scale. It's going to have all these boys that are going to be stuck here and we're going to learn their stories and it's going to be like group therapy and he's going to learn something too. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay, I think I've got
too.
this movie figured out, right? Nope.
Yeah.
Because I would say as this movie is Dead Poet Society for a little bit, it transitions into Good Will Hunting. Very much so. With these characters that are stuck, like they're stuck, they have no place to go, like literally and metaphorically. There comes the guy's father who becomes that lifeline to get the kids unstuck in a way.
Yeah.
Gives them some direction, gives them something to go do.
Oh, the football kid, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they're able to
funny.
go out and they're going to have their adventure. They're going to go live a story out and they're stuck. Meaning we have things, these characters here are going to be forced to deal with things in their narratives that they can't run from anymore. It's going to be the three of them.
Yeah, because
And-
Paul even tells Tully, like, I'm not happy about this either. Now,
I could be reading my mystery novels.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to be here with you.
Yeah.
He's like, just call my mom again. He's like, all right, yeah, I will perfectly
I
fine
will do
doing
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, as a teacher, you see that he's trying at first to slowly come out of his shell. So he I remember there's a scene earlier in The Boys where he throws the football.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, just throws that. There's a scene where he's with Mary and he's trying to peel potatoes. He's watching the show with Mary. He's trying to slowly get out of his comfort zone. He shares those Christmas cookies.
Yeah.
Later, he'll buy the tree.
He shares his book.
He shares the book, which I always
It's just a good book.
I relate so much to that because I
Give the same
truly believe
present.
what
Giving the same present twice.
I've done that before,
I
relate
it.
But I relate to this aspect of it. I truly believe that when we give gifts are given selfishly because we are giving them a part of ourselves that we want them to connect with. So like when you give me something or I give you something, I have gifts for you guys, by the way, here in my bag that I'm going to give you. Merry Christmas in July.
Yeah. On a Christmas movie. Let's
On a
go.
Christmas movie, exactly.
Very smart.
So
That's very clever. How's that going for you?
I think that he is giving a part of himself. He's letting him to a part of himself when he's giving that book. And I want to talk more about the significance of the book later.
That's the only thing he can give.
It's
is that
what he
book.
knows. It's what he knows how to share the song. We'll see later that he ups his efforts to try to connect when he takes him to Boston, see his father, all that stuff. It's like this growing, stepping out of his comfort zone.
And then he was so hurt when he thought like Tully was just using him and it was just going to run away again when they were in.
Right.
And he was like, was all of it just like a lie for you to get me out here?
Yeah.
And it's like, dang, you could hear it in his heart, or his voice, how heartbroken he was if that was going to be the situation.
Well, I think one of the moments I really like when he's trying to, so they have that moment where Tully gets injured, right? Do not cross the
Hilarious.
Rubicon.
Yeah.
And he's obviously, as a teacher, he's worried. And I think hopefully we don't go in those situations as teachers, but I know you get in that situation where a student gets hurt on a field trip and you're like, oh God, I got to contact the parent.
I got to contact
Yeah,
everybody.
right?
I gotta let my boss know. I got to let the parents know. I got to write an incident report.
I mean, maybe not for Nick without.
Oh, I had trust me.
I saw your class. There's no way you didn't have to write several.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
forget
I
the
did.
class outreach. Trust me,
that's
I
right,
had
outreach.
a whole lot of instances.
Before he looks at him, he says a sick Latin phrase that I can't say it the way he did. He goes, "Ale iacta est," and jumps in, and it means the die is cast. So it's like there's no turning back.
That's what
Yeah.
he
And then
said.
immediately
awesome.
dislocates his shoulder. So that's what this kid did.
He starts screaming. It is so
Yeah,
funny.
because it's a plot.
That was awful screaming. I would be.
He's like, that's it. I'm
Frozen.
fired. That's it. You just got me fired. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was
That's
like,
exactly-
I'm going to jail. That's it. I'm going to jail. That's it.
Before we get back to the conversation, I want to take a second and say something to all the men out there who might be listening. I meet a lot of people who listen to this podcast and they say things like, man, it's awesome to hear a bunch of guys who love movies as much as I do just get together and find the deeper meaning of them. And many of them have said, man, I wish there was a place for me to do that, to get together with other people, other guys, just in general, to talk about stories. And that's what we provide at All Things Narrative is we do offer workshops and group experiences where if you have a group of people that you know, or you want to get connected with a group of people, whether it's in person down here in South Florida or whether it's virtually, we provide workshops that educate you about storytelling and help you to analyze these stories in order to connect with them even more deeply by seeing how do these stories speak to us? How do they help us make sense of our lives, the world that we're in? Or whether it's what we're talking about in the holdovers, where it's the powerful connections with others that we can pour into them and they can pour into us. At All Things Narrative, we try to provide these spaces as well. And so if you are interested and you want to learn more about the different workshops and experiences we offer for groups, go ahead and check out the link in the show notes here. It'll take you to a list of our workshops. And at the bottom of that page, you can fill out just a little inquiry form. No cost, nothing attached to it, but just to learn more information or to see how we can bring one of these workshops to your group. And these workshops are going to help you to unpack your story, to better understand the art of storytelling, And so if you like this podcast and you want to go deeper into these different ideas and topics that we discuss here, then check out that link in the show notes and let's have a conversation about how we can bring these workshops to your context. And now back to the conversation. After that moment of the injury, this is when we start to see that there's like almost like this like ping pong, like a tennis game where like there's a scene where Paul has to learn something and a scene where Tully has to learn something. And they go back and forth. So like the scene in the restaurant where he wants to play the pinball machine and the hook guy, like they get in an argument. And this is again perception, right? You think, oh, the hook guy's a douche. Like, why is he doing this? But then the scene plays on and you kind of see a little bbit where Paul has that line where he says, Barton boys don't go to Vietnam. They go to Yale. They go to Princeton. And you see that Tully, he's confronting Tully with his privilege, with his entitlement there.
Check your privilege.
So all of a sudden, your perception of the hook guy is different now, and what he's been through. You start to think about, well, what did he go through to where that happened?
Is a movie of breaking down perception.
Yes,
of people.
exactly.
When they cool down and they go, yeah, okay, we'll take a beer. And then you're like, yeah, these are human beings.
Yes,
even
exactly.
When, what's the bully's guy's name with the long hair again?
Teddy Kuntz.
Teddy, thank you, phone book. When
I knew it was coming. I knew
when
it.
Teddy was
You're
talking about
me.
Mary, of course. When Teddy was talking about Mary, and then Paul snapped and he said, "Just shut your mouth. You don't even know what that woman has been through."
Yeah.
And he had to keep himself, and he's just like, it's like, dang, that is like, I felt that sometimes. I felt that sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like I want to just tell people, hey, can you just shut up? Because you don't know you really don't know what is going on.
I can see you doing that too.
Like it's just like shut up, bro. It's okay.
Yeah, I've told kids to shut up before.
Yeah.
I think we all. I want to say we all have, but I know I have. I know you have.
I can't say I told a kid to shut up, but I have silenced children about when they get in that.
I have another. Oh, this one I definitely cannot. This one's a really sad one. I'm not even going to tell this one.
But still, it's just like these moments. It's just like. Yeah.
Well, and there's the moment of the Christmas party, I think, is awesome too for Paul, because probably the scene that maybe hits me most in the movie is him pouring out to that fellow like secretary, I think, right? She's the headmaster's secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I wrote it down here. I guess I thought I could make a difference. Or I guess I thought it was because I could make a difference. When he's talking about like teaching and why he's in it, all that stuff. Prepare them for the world a little, but the world doesn't make sense anymore. It's on fire. The rich don't give a shit. Poor kids are cannon fodder. Integrity is a punchline. Trust is just the name of the bank. And then she looks at him and replies, if that's true, then now is when they most need someone like you.
Which is so true.
And that moment really hits me a lot because I've fallen into that frame of thinking that Paul has. And I always have had this thought that like, man, I was born at the wrong time and born in the wrong era. This is just not me. And that line, that's when they need someone like you, that keeps me really grounded and anchored and reminded that, okay, like God has us here for a reason. And I don't think the people he brings into our lives are accidents. Just like a good screenwriter knows to pair up Paul and Tully together. I think God knows exactly who to pair us up with as well. Not just to help them grow, but for them to ignite a change in us to grow as well. This is the direct opposite of Fight Club right here.
Yeah.
Because when things seem hopeless, lost, cynical, we don't give in to nihilism. We take the little light that we have, that we've been given, and we do something good with it. This is the anecdote right here. And this is where I think Paul starts to wake up and realize I have an opportunity right in front of me with Tully. And I think that's why he ultimately decides to take him to Boston. I think he realizes that there is something in here. And I think this is when he transitions from being a teacher to being a shepherd. Or not just a teacher, but a shepherd as well.
Yeah.
He's integrating that identity in there. So
I think the pinpoint moment is when they're at the car. And he says, like, I didn't want, like, this is the last thing that I wanted was to be stuck here with you. And then Mary cuts him off real quick and says, he is alone away from his family on Christmas. You do not tell a boy who's been left behind that you don't want nothing to do with him on Christmas.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And right the next morning is when he's like, if there's anything, I think it's the next morning, if there's anything I can do to make this a little bit more cheerier and bright, then let me know. And that's that morning that he goes and gets the Christmas tree and puts it on, and he wraps up his books. And he makes this, in our eyes, a feeble attempt, but it's a bigger attempt than he's ever made, and says, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And that's when he kind of lays himself down as a servant.
Yeah.
And then he says, I want to go to Boston. And he's like, no, the rules. And then he goes, well, it can be a field trip.
Yeah.
And we have funds to make a field trip.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still operating within the boundaries,
His
but
idea
now
of
he's
the rules.
Now he's playing it, and now he's using it for the purpose, really, of Barton, is to produce boys with strong character.
And before we get to Boston, one thing about Mary that needs to be said is that Mary is that healthy feminine that even though she's on her own journey and she's grieving, she is also able to, despite her grief, to help these boys.
Yeah.
Right? She's able to, I don't want to say like push down. She's not pushing down her pain, but it's almost like she's leaning into it and having empathy and compassion and a degree of, can you imagine what he must feel right now as she is in her first Christmas, like without her son? Like there is a lack that she's experiencing. So she's instantly connected with Angus because there's a separation between a parent and a child there.
It reminds me of Fight Club and what Tyler and the narrator are talking about. Tyler Durden, he goes, in a generation raised by women, I wonder if another woman is actually the answer to anything or what we need. And that is out of hurt and pain and trauma when it comes to women, which a lot of men have had with bad experiences. And I've seen it like in Instagram and YouTube comments, and like there's a bunch of guys out there that will see an example of a woman doing something bad and go, ha, look at all women. Yeah, we don't need that. And that's not true. And Mary is an example of a healthy feminine figure that helps us achieve and embrace like healthy masculinity.
That's
and find healing with each other as men.
Yeah. I mean, when God created everything, after God created everything, he said the one thing that was not good was man being alone.
Yes.
It is that feminine side, that mashing together that shows that perfect image of what God is.
Yeah.
And not even just in like a marriage context, but just in social relationships and friendships.
Well, and Mary has that compassion on him too, because I do think there's a reality that if Angus flunks out of the school, it says that the parents are going to put him in military school. You know dang well if he gets into military school, he's going to Nam. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there is also Mary trying to prevent that fate by trying to keep him on the straight and narrow as well, because he is not like other Barton students where he can go off. He has that potential, but he also is on the verge of another fate, which is the fate of her son, the lamb led to the slaughter. So
it's wild that his mom was willing to do that, though. Like I completely forgot about the war going on during that time. Jeez, man.
Angus and Paul are both smart. They have knowledge, but they lack wisdom. And I think that's what Mary is offering to both of them in this film.
It's really good.
So you guys ready to talk about the scene with his dad? Also,
are you ready to talk about it?
Also, I think one of my favorite scenes in the film, he sneaks off from the movie. Paul is like, I'll take you to go see your dad. And then you see that, it's not a cemetery. Yeah. He's going to a physical place. His father. Yeah. And so he sees, I'm like, oh gosh, what are we doing with this? And I'm like, oh man, I'm like on a plane going to New York, and I'm just like, I'm gonna get wrecked in this movie on the plane.
Yeah, I saw the shape of that building, and I'm like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah. So that scene where he's like trying to connect so hard with his father, and then his father just looks at him and says, I think they're putting something in my food, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, which is hard. Because I do think that in a weird way, with the father's mental capacities, he is being honest about something with his son. So there is a weird connection that's happening, but it's obviously not what Tully needs from a father, right? It's disheartening. It crushes him.
Yeah.
Well, and Tully's connecting to the father's issue, and Tully needs the father to connect to him.
Yes.
And all the stuff he's telling him about his life is just
Yeah.
Well, and Tully is like,
Stop.
Paul discovers his pills, right, that he has to take.
Oh
So
my
there is
gosh.
this
Yeah.
there is this fear that he's going to become like his father. And this is when Paul says after that encounter where he says, no one is their father. You are your own man.
Mm.
And that's a key with manhood right there.
Yeah.
Is that
he becomes like a father figure?
Mm-hmm.
who, Paul?
Yeah.
Yes.
Paul.
Yeah. He is becoming that father figure through this. And he's inspiring him and saying like, you can be something else. You don't have to be that. He talks about this to Tully, that there's hope that he has time to turn things around. We got to keep in mind that Paul is also like a history teacher. So there's this sense of time that he has, and he's imparting that sense of time and basically saying your story isn't over. You're not like the history books where it's all said and done. Like that's what I think Curtis is like the juxtaposition of. Like his story is done.
He took him to when he took him to the museum. It was saying if you're not learning about your history, then you're not going to learn about your future as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he
To
said,
learn about, you wrote it down? Yeah, good.
yeah, history is not just a study of the past, it is an explanation of the present.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly want to understand the present or yourself, you must begin in the past.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is what Paul needs.
Yes.
Mhm.
And he does it in the movie. Like his mother died when he was young and he left at 15 and went to Barton.
Mm-hmm.
After Barton, his basically his future crumbled, and he went back to his childhood, and he never left.
Well, and there's the encounter because he's stuck, right? He's stuck as well.
He's stuck in his childhood almost.
Yeah.
And that scene where he meets the former, like, were they like roommates or something like
I
that?
think they were
Yeah,
talking to
Kavanaugh.
school.
So-
Yeah.
yeah. But that scene is interesting because he feels like he has to prove something to him. But then at the same time, there's a brilliant turn when that scene ends where Tully's like, what was that all about? Like
Lied
you
through your
lied
teeth.
and all that. And then he has one of my but one of my favorite lines from the movie.
He's awesome.
He is.
One of my favorite lines from the movie is when he says, he is not entitled to my story.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thinker right there.
Yeah.
Because that guy, he didn't think that he was worthy to let him in. He kept him from a distance. And normally we would say as men like that lack of transparency, that is a weakness. But I actually think there's a virtue of who you choose,
It's like a boundary.
because he is also implicitly saying to Tully that you are entitled to my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is why I love that line so much, is because it is one of the most loving things he's saying to him.
Yeah.
Is that he is not, but you are.
Yeah.
And he's drawing those lines of who he allows into his life.
Good.
And I think as men, we have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think a beautiful part about it is when they're telling each other, like, all right, now you tell me something that's bad about me. But they put their flaws right out in each other's face. And the stuff that, isn't perfect about each other is recognized and known. And I think after that, true intimacy is able to be had.
Yeah.
He's telling this kid that, oh yeah, I hit him with my car.
Mm-hmm.
They're circling the liquor store.
Yeah.
It's really, I was watching that scene. I really liked it. They have that whole conversation. He's looking for the Jim Beam bottle, and it's a decently long conversation. They circle like 3 or 4 times.
I didn't
Yeah,
I didn't
and then
notice
he
that.
he finally goes to the front counter. He goes, "Oh, there it is." That stage right in the liquor store. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is so
I didn't know.
good.
Yeah.
They're looking for the liquor on that shelf. They don't find it, and they're just in a circle,
Just talking.
Yeah.
Funny.
So how it's blocked is cool.
That's cool.
The liquor,
Here you go,
the
killer.
liquor has such a good punchline at the end of the movie that I'll get to when we get there. But before we get to the end though, like when we start to get to how this story resolves, I want to set something up here because we haven't talked about yet what the books are that he gave them. Because I think there's and going back to what you said earlier about the lyrics, like what are his lyrics? What are his text? This is his text. So I wanted to do some research on what the text is.
The book
So-
Meditations.
Yeah, so Meditations is a book about Stoicism. It's an ancient book. So
He says, not a word of God in it.
Yes.
God's never been-
this is my Bible. Yeah.
Yes.
And Mary goes,
yeah,
I was like, I love it.
She goes, you're religious? When's the last time you've been to church? Mhm.
yeah. This is his church, right? This is his religion. So with Stoicism, the heart of Stoicism is that you try to make the best of what you have in life, no matter what's been handed to you. You accept things beyond your control, acting according to your best with what you do have control over. So that's like Stoicism. And there's a little bit of Stoicism in Christianity because it's such a prominent like Greek philosophy there. Now, despite Paul's background and education, not his knowledge of Stoicism and what he is as a teacher, this is what he has to learn in this movie because he's retreated into books his whole life, but he hasn't lived out these ideas. He hasn't lived out the history. And I think the Cherries Jubilee scene is him embracing his Stoic philosophy in a really well-rounded way, where he wants to order it for Tully, and the waitress gives him a hard time because there's alcohol in it. That's when he decides
Waitress
him and Mary.
just doing her job, by the way.
Yeah, yes, right?
I'm not serving this minor alcohol.
They asked her 3 times, and she's like, I just can't. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
And
But I love that him and Mary kind of conspire in this, and like, well, do you have cherry?
Yeah.
Do you have this?
Do you have ice
We'll
cream?
take it to go. And so he is not.
We all want to say it.
What they called her? Yeah.
What?
I said what they called her afterwards when they left.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Mary says it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, bitch. Yeah,
Well,
she
they
was wrong for that.
Yeah,
she was wrong
yeah.
for that.
But
They still
the
put it
idea,
up.
I think, is that they're refusing to give in to circumstances. And it shows how far they come together. They have chosen to make the best of this situation of being the holdovers, and they're doing something with it. So Mary does that by becoming a mother again, by the college fund. Is her nephew, right? I think it's her nephew. So
That's about to be born.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Mary refuses to let circumstances dictate her. So she embraces the Stoic philosophy by accepting what's happened and now making the best of it. Angus, I think, is also doing this. And when they get back to campus and it's revealed that Paul took him to see his father, and the parents are the mom who was not there for him. She was off on a honeymoon with,
She was out there cupcaking.
cupcake, and that's right.
And left her son, bro.
On
right.
Christmas.
On Chris.
Bro, the cupcake with some man, dog.
Yep.
And he coming in, we're going to send him up. Bro,
Yep.
you don't get out of here.
Oh,
Yeah.
His mother and father, stepfather.
Yeah, stepfather.
So
So you don't get to correct that. Someone else corrects it for you.
So when there's that confrontation with the headmaster, Paul, and the parents, Paul has bringing together everything that this moment has led up to and choosing to sacrifice his own career and his own comfort by saying that it was not Tully's idea who manipulated him to doing it. It was his.
Yeah.
And he, as the adult, acted on that idea. And he's not lying because, he could have said no and stopped him, but he did choose to act on that, right? And so he takes that, and it's not Tully that gets kicked out, it's him. And then he has that line where he stands up to the headmaster, who you could tell he's wanted to say this to him all this time. I don't even remember the line.
Pretty much just like,
Oh,
out of all the students I've had or taught, you have been, or just know that you are a giant
Penis cancer.
Yeah.
That's what he calls him. You're the embodiment of penis. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's emasculation.
It always comes back to, yes, exactly. in these
of
movies.
not holding the values and like sticking and fighting up against like
injustice.
That's an awesome connection to
Injustice.
Fight Club.
But
Yeah.
another emasculation is that guy, the headmaster, was Paul's student.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like he's now has to serve the student.
Yes.
And Paul's still in this same spot. That was a difficult.
It's a power
so he's
trip.
emasculation to Paul.
Yeah.
He's cancer to him.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, that's how Paul was still probably hard when he was teaching him too. So
Yeah.
that is just a sense of just projecting that back onto him.
Right.
And when you have leadership,
Well, and now Paul is he's free.
Yes.
He's free from Barton. He can
He's
go
free from
live
his childhood.
Yeah,
his
he's free.
trauma.
He can go live out his own story, and his freedom and Tully's freedom are now interconnected. He has that line to Tully where he says, keep your head up. You can do that.
Oh my god.
And Tully, he has an opportunity now. And I think he's, the film seems to hint that he's going to go out and
I like he says goodbye and just sprints away. He almost like skips away into the
Well,
snow.
But
he's like joyful.
He's
yeah,
like,
there's
bye.
there's an excitement.
Yeah.
Well,
His
it's like
life can start.
his
Yeah.
life is
Yeah.
truly starting. Paul's life, he can go see. Like, what does he say? Like, I think I'll start with Greece or something like that. He's gonna go finally.
Carthage.
Yeah, Carthage. Yeah, he's going to actually get to be a part of that which he's read about. He's going to get the music now. He has the words. Now he's going to go hear the music. And it's so awesome because the movie ends with him swiping the bottle of Louis the 13th.
Yeah, I realized that it was the headmaster's brandy.
Yes. Now, if you guys know anything about Louis the 13th, it ain't no like market store brandy. Nick, please indulge us on how much a 1.5 ounce shot of Louis costs.
$250 a shot. Actually, it's just a 1 ounce shot.
A 1 ounce
probably.
shot, $250.
And the bottle itself, if you drink enough of it, or if you drink enough of it, they give you the bottle. The bottle itself costs like $800 to $1,000.
Just for the bottle.
Yeah, the bottle is like a thing in itself when you start to drink Louis.
I spent $25 on a shot before. And I didn't even want to spend. I didn't even know it was
$250, and they used it as mouthwash.
And
he swished it and
awesome.
spat it out.
that is so like I respect all that. I respect
a
all that. That was a
giant
whole
middle finger.
to the system, brother.
Yes.
Yes.
And I tried it before.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, not for $250, but it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right though, Joe.
Ridiculous.
It is the whole movie when he drinks liquor, it's Jim Beam, and Jim Beam is a very like entry level
Yeah, you can
cheap
just
bourbon. And so
At the liquor store.
I do think he
Corner
there-
store.
Oh, that's cool,
Yeah, because I do think with the Jim Beam, there's a couple like symbolic acts with it. So one, it's like a cheap bourbon. So I think it's him like not giving in to the privilege and entitlement of Barton.
Mhm.
It's trying to him keep himself
It's
grounded.
his defiance.
Yes, it's
It's
his
the everyman.
defiance,
Yeah.
but it's the everyman in him. But it's also at the same time, this is all I've got.
Yeah, this
This is all I'm worth.
Mhm.
So when he takes the Louis, it's twofold. Not only is there a sense of like, I'm worth this, but then he spits the privilege right back out and says, but I'm not gonna go through that
I'm
system.
not-
Yes.
This is not me.
Yeah.
This is not me.
Yeah.
I'm worth it. I can drink it, but I spit it back out because it's not me. And that is
Cool.
such a brilliant way
That's
to end
pretty
this
cool.
movie.
Man, I did not even think of any of that.
Good.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on this movie?
If you're in any educational purpose or just like you mentor kids or anything like that, I think this is a movie you should watch.
I agree.
Especially if you've been in teaching for a long time, because I've noticed that I can get inside the sense of like the Paul just being frustrated. Like, what am I even doing? Am I really even like helping? But it just rejuvenates you, and it's an understanding of just like, even if you don't reach everyone, just reach the one, and that's what really matters.
So good.
Yeah, I wanna add to that because I got something similar. So this story ends differently than some others do. So the kids get back. They never made it back and had this life transformation journey that we saw Tully and Paul and Mary have. But they get back from their ski trip and their fun. And I go, man, I was hoping that he would get some redemption or he would get some sort of story. And when I'm watching movies, it's not a movie. It's not a play or scene. It's just life happening in front of me. And these characters are real to me. And when the movie ends, you don't see Paul's trip to Carthage or the book he writes. You don't see Tully go anything.
A lesser movie would have done that.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And some people are want a lesser movie, and I'll tell why. But they go there, they go on their journey, and then it's over. It's ended with Paul driving off. And to me, I've wondered like why. When movies end like this, and I think of Inside Llewyn Davis as an example for this, but the movie doesn't end with us seeing the journey that he's going on after this low point. It just ends right at the point where he's about to go. And when I was watching this movie and I was wrestling with this, and I this question came to me, and the question was, do I just want closure, or am I okay with hope? With the hope that these characters will go off and really achieve what we believe that they're going to with this revelation. So going into it, the jerk, Teddy, he goes off to go skiing with 3 kids that he would not hang out with.
Yeah.
2 quote unquote losers.
Right.
Super brainy kid and a little Mormon whiny kid that he doesn't like, Alex, because he snitched on him.
So funny. He orphaned that glove on purpose.
Tully added that.
Tully's funny. It's just a good movie.
Oh my gosh. He added way too much in there. He wasn't thinking that far. But anyways, he goes off with these 2 kids that he picks on, and this other kid that he's a pretty popular guy, he's known, but he doesn't let fighting go on.
Yeah.
Or he stops it. And he's like, no, cut it out. Okay, tell us your story.
Yeah.
And so they all go on a trip with this kid, and I wonder, is a friendship going to form between them after this?
Yeah.
Did Teddy pick up on some of the kindness and actually have a group to grow with? Like, there might have been a whole journey that we did not see. And maybe now with Tully not just fighting right at Teddy now and saying, I'm glad you had a good vacation. What are they going to show each other from what they learned? Like, this is a journey waiting to happen.
Well,
and Paul only got 1 kid.
Yeah.
We've been in our teachers, some of us depending,
mm-hmm.
and there's a possibility that we only really make an impact on 1.
Yeah.
And we might not even see their journey or what they're going to do. And maybe the person who is our mentors might not see the end of our journey, but can we hope that what we instilled and what they got is not only going to take them through and they're going to keep it, but they'll spread it. And my hope is that Paul writes his book, not monogram, on Carthage. And my hope is that Mary continues to be kind and sweet and make sure they don't have too much paprika in
that was funny,
yeah.
That's too much paprika.
When she said that, I was like,
why'd you put all that paprika?
Why'd you put all that paprika in there?
Now you got to add a third cup of water.
She's right. I was like, dude, calm down with it. It's too much.
Why'd you put all that paprika?
That was good.
Well, I think there's an ambiguity as teachers that we don't always know how things are going to go.
Right, yes.
And I love
scary.
that the movie ends with that when Paul leaves the school, our time with the students is over also, because we don't know. You're right. There could be a lot of amazing things that come out of that, or maybe those kids don't change, because sometimes that happens too in life, is you come back from these experiences and you fall back into your routine. We just don't know the ambiguity of it. And so I think there's a trust you have to have with this movie. You trust that Tully is going to take what Paul learns and go make something of himself. Kind of like a Good Will Hunting. Like, you trust that Will is going to go out. And so, go ahead.
I want to bring it back to the first line of the movies.
Yeah.
It says, remember the text is first. In the beginning was the word. So the text is what you're concentrating on. Make it part of the music.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something earlier that Paul now can go and listen to the music.
Yes.
I think the music, the stories about the music changing right now.
Yeah.
And when Paul starts to listen to Mary in that moment where she says, like, you can't tell that to a little boy, and he starts to change. And when Paul listens to, who's the secretary?
I forget her name.
When he listens to the secretary and says, you may have been made for this moment now.
Yeah.
His music begins to change.
Yes.
And the story's about that process, and we're watching it, and we see that Angus's music has changed. He now is sprinting back with optimism to the place that he hated.
Yeah.
And so it's not really about Angus's future. It's about the story being told and these people making music with each other. And
that's good.
We're in the podcast. This is what we're doing this for.
Mm-hmm.
We are making music. My story, my song has changed, and I can look into the future and where I am now with work, but not realizing my whole song, I'm singing a whole different song.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's the right now of making the music. And that's why it's not about Llewellyn. It's not about that end. That end is just a joke. It's his song has changed.
Yeah.
And then he gets kicked in the face.
Yeah. Well, the song changing is going to change the future.
Yeah.
Though what's happening right now, and that change does affect it.
Yeah.
And so, but
he's already listening to the music in the car, swishing Louis the 13th.
Yeah.
And that makes the movie just a good song.
Yeah. I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the Fight Club episode to kind of round this out. So Chuck Palahniuk had said there's 2 kinds of stories for men today. There's Fight Club, and then there's Dead Poet Society. And we did Fight Club and The Holdovers because I think between these 2 stories, we see these different paths we can go. And I think the big takeaway from The Holdovers is that it's better, because we are going to fight for something as men. It's better to fight for what you want than to just give up and hide in the shadows. So all three of these characters, the narrator, four, the narrator, Tyler Durden, Paul, and Tully, they all had things they wanted that they were fighting for. But the difference, I think, why we get to this place where Paul and Tully is they are able to, one, they're able to take the healthy sides of the feminine and integrate it through Mary.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that they're able to restore the father-son relationship that neither of them had. There's like in the book of Proverbs, there's all these great verses about like the cherishing, like the gray hair, the wisdom of, the older, but then the younger, there's this youth and there's this vigor and life in them. Strength. Yeah, there you go. So I think that's what the Holdovers is getting at with masculinity, is cherishing the wisdom, like even through the imperfections of Paul, recognizing that he is smart. He does have things to teach, like the scene in the museum is awesome, right?
Just need a little pornography, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. So
that's exactly it. Yeah. See, you say it like that, and throw a little pornography in. I can totally understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
So I think when we're able to take the healthy side of the past of wisdom, and we're able to take the vigor of youth and the future, we're able to marry them together in the present moment, I think we can really make something of ourselves as men. And so that's what we'll end on.
Yeah.
And next time you're going to hear us do something a little bit different. We're actually going to do a live episode where we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about masculinity, but in a more mythic sense through the film RoboCop. So we hope you will join us for that. And until next time, take care. Thank you for listening to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, produced by All Things Narrative. If you'd like to learn more about our coaching, workshops, events, please check out allthingsnarrative.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at All Things Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and tune in next time as we continue exploring the stories we love and the stories we live. Take care.